Hello and a very warm welcome to this edition of Talking Europe. Well, EU citizens have the right to cross-border healthcare. That is, they can choose to get treatment either in their home country or travel to any other EU state where their care would be reimbursed. And it's not just patients crossing borders, but doctors and expertise can too. Late last year, the EU Commission approved 24 networks of experts and healthcare providers organised across the bloc, getting them to share diagnosis, treatment and care. And yet, discrepancies between EU member states are clear. Life expectancy in Latvia is almost a decade less than it is in Spain. Survival rates for breast cancer has increased across most countries, but remains lower in the UK and Ireland. So should EU citizens benefit from a common health policy? To what extent is EU healthcare actually crossing our borders? Well, with me to tell me more, I'm joined from an MEP, one of the countries with one of the best healthcare systems from Denmark, Ms. Margrethe Auken. You sit with the Greens here in the EU Parliament. A warm welcome to you. From Belgium, I have Ms. Lieve Wierink. You are with the European People's Party. And beside you, I have from Ireland, Mr. Luke Flanagan. You sit with the European Left here in Brussels. Welcome to you all. Mr. Flanagan, maybe I can start with yourself. Why doesn't Ireland give its citizens as good a healthcare as Denmark?
Minister after minister attempt to solve the problem that is there with our healthcare system, to the point that the one before last referred to it as Angola, suggesting that it was chaos and it could never have been solved. So I suppose if you want a good healthcare system, you've got to have a political system that believes it can be decent. There are solutions. You tax and you spend properly. They are the solutions.
Ms. Auken?
Our healthcare system is public paid, as our educational system, and it's absolutely the ideal that everybody get equal treatment, whatever basis they have. And that has been an ongoing fight to keep this up here. It's my experience that we are also better not to give an over-treatment. I've tried to be at hospital here in Belgium, where they clearly over-treated me, because you have as far as I can see, the doctors are within a risk insurance system. So if they don't give me all kind of treatment, they risk, I'm not sure, they risk to be sued. And there, it makes it cheaper in Denmark because we don't have that link
it's
to,
more
necessary. The doctor can be reasonable, say, is this here reasonable? And then, of course, we have a compensation if something happens.
I think it's the choice of the doctor. So normally, if a doctor says it's not so serious, they don't give medication. If they see you prescribe too much antibiotics, then they will send you a letter and say that's not more possible. That's exaggerated.
Now, people, EU citizens like myself, can travel if I feel my healthcare might be better, for example, in France or in Germany. Does that happen? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing. It happens, but it happens in a very limited scale. And there, I think that the reason number one is when people are ill, they want to be at home. Yeah, all of us would do that, having a family and so on. So you don't travel if you're not in an extreme situation. And I think that's the reason number one. Why people don't eat. Yes. And then, of course, that you cannot travel with and expect a compensation at home if you don't have
for the travel costs.
Not only the travel costs, but also for the treatment. My point was that, of course, it should be agreed upon from home before you go, and that means
you get validated that you're entitled to the treatment
and that is needed, not to make a weird competition or to bankrupt your budget. The budgets.
Basically, you should be allowed to travel if you can't get that treatment in your home country.
Yes, that is, and it's accepted that they are willing to do it.
In our country, if I may add, in our country, they will reimburse you. And they even will pay your hotel if there is no treatment in this particular illness in Belgium.
Then they will accept it.
Is that common across the EU, or is that
I don't know,
Belgium specific?
That's Belgium.
It depends which scheme. Under one of the schemes, while it sounds like great, you can travel to any country, under one of the schemes, you actually have to pay up front yourself and then you reclaim the money later, which in most of the cases, the people I'd represent, that would be impossible. But I think it's an interesting aspiration to try and have universal healthcare standards right across Europe. But at the same time, within Ireland, we don't have universal healthcare healthcare standards. If we're going to fight for universal healthcare right across the European Union, I would say the revolution needs to start at home first. We need to get it in Brussels, we need to get it in Ireland, and then aspire maybe internationally.
I think that having a system, I like the system we have because the possibility is there. And we don't need, of course, if you cannot get the approval at forehand, then you have to pay yourself and cannot be sure to get the reimbursement. But we have a system where,
whereby
you should
if you need it, and,
yes.
and in the EU the treatment is out there,
yes.
But
EU
even
citizens
if
can get
you
it.
were sure of the reimbursement, if you don't have access to credit to get
it's
it in
still
the
for the
first
rich.
place, it is going to be a problem for
So
us.
it's the wealthy EU citizens who
Well,
still have the advantage.
generally, the more wealthy will be able to actually access that, and that is a problem.
Yeah, it is a fair. And when it comes very briefly to access to medicines, because I believe EU nations, they negotiate on a bilateral level with pharmaceuticals. Shouldn't we do it as a bloc? Wouldn't that
Absolutely. I've just finished our initiative report here on access to medicine.
Yes.
And, looking into the way they bankrupt us, sorry to say, you have, it's probably the strongest lobby organization we have globally. It's the pharmaceutical industry. And I think it's their invention that member states should negotiate one by one.
No, it's also member states who want to stay on their own and who want to keep health in their...
But
well,
now
you have member
negotiate-
states like Ireland that have most of the big pharmaceutical companies from around the world based there, employing people, and you have a government like ours who are reluctant to bring down the price of medicine in our own country because they can subsequently, legitimately say we are charging this much for it in Ireland. We are based there, this is good value, etc. But in fact, it hasn't resulted in less costs for us, it's resulted in the highest costs in Europe for pharmaceutical companies.
I will say
harmonizing
in
the
Belgium
price.
we have Maggie de Bloc, who is our minister, and she made a pact for the future. And for rare disease medicines, we work together with Benelux, the Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, and also Austria. And we buy together medicines.
Which makes your negotiating position much stronger.
We are stronger and we can.
Do you think there'd be resistance on an EU level to join forces when it comes to medicine?
Yes.
Well, I would like to see a consistency all around, and in particular on, let's say, new products that are coming on the market, and in particular cannabinoid-based products. We had a situation in Ireland only 3 weeks ago where I, along with a member of our parliament, travelled to Barcelona to a clinic, met a consultant, got a prescription for a child that has a rare form of epilepsy. We travelled back through Dublin Airport. The woman had the medicine taken off her. She was searched and she no longer has the medicine. So she now looks at the European Union and says, I have to do this all around Europe. Yet when it comes to getting access for medicine to my child, I can't get it. So those inconsistencies need to be dealt with.
This sounds a little bit weird, this situation. But what we need is, and what we have called for in the parliament, is that new medicine, we should know, is it a benefit compared to the already there?
Yes.
Yes. What are the side effects? We should also make forced...
The EU safety standards.
Yes, but we should also make sometimes forced access. Because, the way they sit there with their monopoly and patents, and, they block 50,000 times the price, for instance, for the hepatitis C medicine. And that could be done. And we should be aware, much more than we are, that at least 50% of all the costs of research and development are paid publicly beforehand.
Yeah. Indeed, so there should be some payback.
And then we give everything to them, and then
research and development.
So, we have lots of things to be done if we do this here together, and we are not, none of us, we have big industries in Denmark too, none of us are strong enough when we are alone. But absolutely still have our different systems. But we could save a lot of money.
Systems, and for farmers, for the industry, we made a pact in Belgium. So the new medicines will quickly on the market. So we will do the procedure faster, so it will be quicker on the market.
Please, be careful, be careful, be careful. This is, sorry. This is what the industry have done to circumvent the very expensive trial system and the transparency. And,
No, but our price is lower.
Yes, but
we receive a lower price.
Yeah, but...
And because that's the reason they say, so we need less time. So the price will be lower, and we have a lower price.
Yeah, but we tried to prevent this in the Parliament together. Yes, but you know, because it's an industry trick. That if they can go, they call it adaptive pathways. It's a fast track, and
no, it's not the track you have to do with your tests. It's the way when it enters in the country, then it takes a while to be reimbursed, and if they may sell it, those procedures. Those procedures are shorter.
Hang on 2 seconds, because I have many more questions, but I just want to look at one thing. We're seeing austerity, you know, across the EU, and one of the systems that
exactly what I was going to say.
They're perfect. So I'll have a question after this. But one of the big sectors that was hit was the health one in many member states. In France, even public hospitals are being asked to cut their costs and become profitable. Healthcare staff say they're paying the price with their own well-being, many showing signs of exhaustion, depression, some opting for a complete career change. Our reporter Alexandre Renard takes a look at the health of French hospitals.
When these workers signed up for public service, they knew they'd never get rich and that the hours could make family life difficult. But they assumed that would be the full extent of their sacrifice.
In a way, we're ashamed, whether we admit it or not individually. That's what pushes a lot of employees into depression. That depression doesn't just come on its own, it's because we're not proud of what we're doing. It's because we find it hard to look at ourselves in the mirror. I would not go to my own hospital if I needed treatment.
In charge of 39 hospitals in the department, the APHP is also the region's biggest employer and the country's largest hospital body. We're not allowed to film inside, and employees rarely speak to journalists. But Marianne is. She lives in a small studio just outside Paris. Last summer, work-related stress led her to a nervous breakdown.
I worked the whole summer, and when it came to September, I was extremely tired, and there was still so much work. My holidays were approaching, but I just cracked.
Healthcare workers report regularly not having enough time to eat or even drink. They say it's dangerous for them and their patients. The French state pays new nurses like Marianne a monthly salary of 1,500 euros net. It's not enough to cover even her most basic needs.
The cost of living is going up, but my salary isn't. You get to a point where it just becomes impossible. In my fridge, there are some eggs, a camembert, some pasta, and that's it. And I still got 6 days before my next payment comes through. And there's nothing left in my fridge. How am I going to eat for the next 6 days?
Recent reforms have forced hospitals to organise themselves more like businesses, where the budget is king. For this diabetes expert, the public health service itself is under threat.
How are doctors required to behave as far as ethics are concerned? They need to find the right treatment for the patient, to do everything they can for him or her, at the lowest cost to the collective, because our system of social security is essentially a system of collective finance.
For those in charge of the public purse, it's not about how hospitals can make money, but rather about how they can lose less. And the easiest way of cutting costs is to reduce the amount of time each patient is entitled to. Since the end of the 1990s, the message in France has been clear. You can put a price on health.
Well, just to point out that the director of the Paris Hospitals Board declined to comment on that report. But Ms. Auken, I saw you shaking your head as you watched.
Yes, because this is dramatic. You know, we have also cuts in Denmark, and we have big battles on them, and some of them are really tough and not good. And that's where we have this medicine prices, because they are going up. And that's so important that we tackle that problem in order to get more money available. But this system would be absolutely unacceptable in Denmark. There we have equal treatment, and it is public paid. And whenever rich or poor, you can get your treatment, and you can get, you know, most of your medicine.
So that's where, should the EU not have some reaction? Should there be a minimum paid? Because often, Mr. Flanagan, you wanted to speak earlier about, you know, the effect austerity has on healthcare systems. It's often one of the first targeted.
The amount that you pay your workers is dependent on how much money you have coming in and how much money you have in your budgets. And if you have a situation whereby, and we have in the European Union, in many economies, socialised bank debt, that is less money for education, it's less money for health, and it's less money for other services. In Ireland, in the last 3 years, we borrowed €6 billion. And what did we do with it? We eviscerated it.
Ms. Weering, do you think that health needs to move up the agenda?
First of all, health is something from the member states. Every member state has to organize it himself. So it's
even
not
a minimum. No.
As in Europe, we can give some reflections. But we can't do anything in a member state. So if we see a film from France, it's really in France, it has to be arranged, not here in Europe. And I don't think it's good. We commend those things. It's something in the member states.
But the EU puts pressure on the member states from other things,
Yes,
as Mr.
and we
Flanagan
also-
was saying. Is
we
that
can
fair
put
that we're putting
pressure.
pressure to take money from in certain areas and health is
No,
one of them?
but normally you don't take anything about in health because health is always asking more.
Yeah.
And we have in the future, we have the people are getting older, so people are living longer. There will be more, so there will be more sick people. So health is something we have to see it on an economical way. So with this goal to serve everybody in the future and that everybody has the same cures and on the same way.
I hope we get the social pillar into it. And having minimum standards, at least, how you organised there, of course, that should still be,
so that EU citizens will be equal when it comes to healthcare.
We have equal minimum standards, not equal standards.
Well, the richest countries not just get the best doctors from the poorest countries.
Yes,
well, we have seen a bit of a Romanian exodus since they joined.
If you wonderful countries stop to be a tax haven and tax...
I would love it to happen. I have fought for it, believe me.
I think we could start another 10 debates here. Thanks so much to all my guests for giving us their insights for what our rights are in relation to health today and what they might be in the future. Thanks also to you at home for having watched. That brings us to the end of this half of Talking Europe. See you again after the news.